I was very happy to hear that Victor Davis Hanson would like to come on air to talk to all of you about his new book, The Case for Trump. Now, many of you may know of Victor already. He's an American military historian, a columnist, former classics professor at the California State University of Fresno, scholar of ancient warfare, and he's been a commenter on modern warfare and contemporary politics for National Review and many, many other outlets. He's currently a senior fellow at Stanford University's Hoover Institution, which he sits there with the likes of Dr. Thomas Sowell, another person that I follow, Shelby Steele, George Shultz, the former Secretary of State for Ronald Reagan, and more. And as I stated, his book, which came out March 5th, The Case for Trump, is very, very interesting. So welcome to the Live with Renk show, Victor Davis Hanson. Appreciate you coming on, Victor, even though it's over there. You're coming on the West Coast there, right?
Yes. Thanks for having me.
It's interesting that it must be difficult being who you are and thinking rational the way you are and living on the West Coast. So that's for another day. So obviously the first question is, an obvious one. You believe that there's a case for President Trump, what he's doing, and I assume a case for him to be reelected. A, is that correct? And B, what is the top 2, 3 that you think is that case?
Well, I think that Trump, you got to remember, and I'll try to combine those questions. Trump in 2016 didn't run in a vacuum. He ran against Hillary, who was for him, it was quite suitable because all of her sins or transgressions sort of trumped his own, whether her email scandal or the Uranium One scandal or her husband's treatment of women or her callousness to the deplorables or the irredeemables or coal miners. And the thing's going to be true in 2020. Whatever people think of Trump's tweeting or his occasional, flip comments, he's going to be running against a real live person. And that real live person is probably going to be tagged in part or in toto by this new progressive agenda. And that agenda, unfortunately for the Democrats, does not poll on any one particular issue, 51%. So in the book, I ended with the idea that, the new Green Deal or wealth tax or 90% income tax rate or reparations or infanticide is permissible, abortion, open borders, abolish ICE, abolish electoral college, abolish student debt. We've never seen an agenda like that, maybe not since 1932 or even then. And so Trump I think he's going to argue again, not this time that he's not Hillary, but he's going to say, I'm the only thing between you and socialism. And there's a lot of people who are very quiet now. They don't like to talk to pollsters. But when they turn on the television and they hear Kamala Harris trash the Knights of Columbus, or they hear that Elizabeth Warren wants to take tax money from a welder in Milwaukee and give it to somebody of a different race through reparations like Jay-Z, or they say to themselves, I love my snowmobile, I love my lawnmower, I don't want to give it up. And it's a very record cold year, let's say, in Wisconsin. I'm not talking about the merits or the right or wrong. I'm just saying the political reality of that. And the political reality is that they're not going to flock to that message, even though the polls might not reflect that yet.
So you believe
each of these progressive. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. So Victor, and again, on air with me is Victor Davis Hanson. His new book, The Case for Trump, came out on March 5th. It's very interesting. You guys really, I think, would enjoy it. You believe that the perfect storm once again would be brewing for a candidate like President Trump, as was with Hillary Clinton, because you couldn't have had someone who would run, not only have the baggage, as you stated, she came with, but also the manner in which she campaigned. She wasn't a very good campaigner. Her personality style wasn't that great. I remember telling people, don't worry about it. She's not that good of a campaigner. I did think that she would lose by more. But real quickly then, he could be favored with that in this upcoming election. More so, maybe there'll be a more dynamic campaigner and a harder campaigner than her, a dynamic personality, I mean, and a harder campaigner than her. But the baggage of this far left is going to drag them down?
I think so. I think there's going to be an effort, whoever the nominee is, to tag them previously in the primary. We're going to see, I think, debates that we haven't really seen before among the Democratic candidates, as each one tries to out-amnesty the other, or out-sanctuary city, or out-infanticide, or out-reparations, or out-wealth tax the other candidate. And unfortunately for them, people are going to witness this, and they're going to say, out of this conundrum, where's the person who gets me 3% economic growth, or record unemployment in peacetime, or increases oil and gas to the degree that we're the world's largest producer, maybe exporter, or where's the discussion that we're going to stand up to North Korea, or we're going to get out, or stand up to the Iranians, and they're not going to see that. And yet the media is so caught up in this 24-hour cycle of emoluments clause, 25th Amendment, the Mueller investigation, McCabe, Comey, Brennan, and Russia collusion, that they don't see the transformation of their party into a McGovern 1972-like campaign, or maybe a Walter Mondale 1984 hard left progressive campaign, and that traditionally has not worked. Now, they would say to that, Victor, you're very naive. Your book doesn't understand that we've changed the electorate. Demography is destiny, and now we have a new electorate, and we have lax voting laws. We're getting out the vote. And so this isn't 1972. But people are people, no matter what their superficial appearance. I just don't think that a person is going to vote to get rid of, a Winnebago or jet skis or a meat diet. I just don't think they want to go that route.
And to that point, Victor, I can tell you from having a show 15 hours a week on air that whenever I bring up any of that collusion or anything, I don't bring it up much because people don't care about it. They really don't. I think they've gone past it, moved past it, and other than the far hard left. But, they're moving on to other things. And recently I had two groups of unions that called me on air and discussed it with all of us, how they love Trump and build the wall, and they love what they're seeing in the economics. So you still believe that even though there's a vocal, the people with all the energy of the anti-Trump, the haters, the far left, it's very vocal, that there's still that bigger silent majority out there that's not being wooed by that?
I do, and I think that I'm not saying that a traditional Republican candidate could capture that constituency. I don't think Romney, if he was running again, would. But Donald Trump is a very paradoxical character. When he goes to the Midwest, he doesn't say 47% of the people are on government assistance, whether it's true or not. He says our farmers, our worker, our.
Mm-hmm.
It conveys an empathy. When he goes to West Virginia, he doesn't say, like Hillary Clinton, I'm going to shut your coal industry and put you out of work. He says, big, beautiful coal. When he goes to Alabama, he doesn't say you all, y'all, like Hillary. Or when he goes to the inner city, he doesn't sound like he's a rapper like Obama. Or he doesn't put on camouflage and duck hunting gear like he was John Kerry running for office. So what I'm getting at is that the suit, the tie, that weird Queen's accent, the hair, no matter where he is, Indiana State Fair or Bakersfield, California, he's authentic, the same, genuine. And that, in a weird, paradoxical way, comes across as a billionaire Manhattan populist who cares more about people that use muscular labor. He doesn't want their jobs outsourced. He doesn't want their bosses offshoring capital. He doesn't want China to. That comes off to a union member as more empathetic and authentic.
Yeah, and I think that does help bring people. I have a question for you. Most of the mainstream manipulative news talk about how bad President Trump is, and everything he does is bad. He's not qualified to be president. In your research for writing your book, what would you say to those people? And I had an example. I found the following: the dangerous case of Donald Trump. 27 psychiatrists and mental health experts assess a president.
Well, I mean, that reflects to me the poverty of historical knowledge. So let's take those 27 psychiatrists and we'll say to them, what do you think the personality is of somebody who would take a 21-year-old staffer who was his subordinate and have sexual escapades in the bathroom off the Oval Office? Or let's take JFK. What would those psychiatrists say if somebody who deflowered an 18-year-old girl in his wife's bed when Jackie was out of town? Or what would they say of LBJ, who exposed himself and grabbed his genitals and showed his salad? These are all historical facts, by the way. Or FDR, who said, my daughter Anna will arrange his affairs with Lucy Mercer. These are all while he's in the White House. Nobody's accused Trump of any of that behavior. Or maybe Harry Truman, a wonderful man who wrote a letter to a music critic who had trashed his daughter's concert performance and said, if I ever see you, I'm going to hit you blank, blank, and then you're going to be blank, blank for the rest of your life.
Well, yeah.
So we've had presidents who've said and done things within the White House without the social media scrutiny, without the partisanship that we have now, without the 90% negative coverage that we have with Trump. And yet we just said, well, we didn't know.
I got to go to break, Victor. Just a minute. I'm sorry. That's Victor Davis Hanson. We'll be right back for one more segment. You listen to Live with Renk. Appreciate that very, very much. I think a lot of those people on the far left in the media hate themselves for loving Trump, and they secretly love him because they are getting better ratings and making more money off of him. On air with me is Victor Davis Hanson. In fact, in talking to him at the break, he'll be on air with Live with Renk, me this morning, and Tucker Carlson maybe later tonight. He wrote the book, The Case for Trump. It came out on March 5th. I would definitely recommend any of you that are interested in having this learned person's knowledge on why he believes there is a case for Trump and actual factual reasons, not just emotional ones. I would definitely get it. Now let's welcome back to the Live with Renk show, Victor Davis Hanson. Victor, again, what were people right? Let me put it that way. Were people right in choosing Trump the first time? And I ask that question because I'm always wondering, with this constant attack, like you stated, 90% of bad news, those stories about him, those people that had switched sides, and I know some of them called me and said to me they were Democrats their whole life, they're going to vote for Trump. I'm hoping they're not getting wishy-washy on this. Your thoughts?
No, I agree with you, and I dedicated the book to deplorables, and my point was that most of the voters had an innate instinct that we had reached an impasse with the Republican and Democratic establishment. They just couldn't address the fact we couldn't get 3% GDP annualized growth. We seemed like we couldn't drill in Anwar. We couldn't build pipelines. We couldn't close the border. We didn't know what we were doing in Afghanistan. And anybody who objected to that was considered racist or nativist or isolationist. And so Trump came in, and 2 years later, if we just forget whether he's a saint or sinner, we look at the analytics, 3% GDP, record low unemployment, record gas and oil production, projects like Anwar, the pipelines going ahead, an effort at least to try to address the open, porous border. It reminds us that the people in Michigan, Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio, all over the Midwest, or people like where I am in the Central Valley, Fresno, Bakersfield, Tulare, and your listeners, they had an instinct that was correct, and that the data and the analytics in the first 2 years backed that up. And then the second instinct that Donald Trump, whether you liked him or not, had a style that they weren't going to play by the Marquis of Queensberry rule. He had a style that said to the voter, don't vote for me if you want another Mitt Romney campaign. Do not vote for me if you want me to put Reverend Wright off the table like John McCain did. I'm not going to be Bob Dole in 1996. I'm not going to be I'm not a Jeb Bush. So if you want that sober and judicious, gentlemanly Marquis of Queensberry, lose nobly, I'm going to win ugly. And I think at that particular time, people said, well, I don't like the ugly, but I want to win. And they voted for him. And I think they may do the same in 2020.
And you think they have good reason to do so in your research?
I do, because I think that we have warped media coverage such, and the Shorenstein Center said 85 to 90% of the coverage was biased.
Right.
We've had this basically a slow-moving coup, 25th Amendment, Emoluments Clause, Mueller investigation, voting machines lawsuits, impeachment efforts, that we've sort of lost perspective of what was the presidential standard in the past. And because we don't know anything about our presidential history, we have created this construct, this fantasy that Donald Trump is more obscene, uncouth, than any other president we've seen.
Right. Let me ask you a question.
It's simply not true.
I appreciate that. We're running out of time. I wanted to ask you two questions. One of your chapters, Chapter 4, was titled Democratic Tribalism. What do you mean by that?
I mean that the Democratic Party saw that they wanted to change the demography, which is okay, I guess, but they told their supporters that how you appear, what color you are, what gender you are, is your personality. It's not incidental. And Republicans say that's incidental. It's your ideas that matter. And they said, no, it's essential. And we're going to vote, and we're going to conduct ourselves in every aspect of our lives according to whether we're black or brown or Christian or Muslim or female or male. And that was contrary to the American idea of the melting pot. So that's one of the great issues today, is that will Latino voters and will black voters resist that and say, you know what, I'm going to vote on the issues. And we've been there before. The Italians came and everybody said they have to be Democrats. And after 50 years, if your name's Pelosi or Cuomo or Giuliani, we can't predict how you're going to vote anymore just because you're Italian. That's where we want to be, that where all of our backgrounds are incidental to who we are. And we want to be there because we know the alternative is Rwanda or the Balkans or, Iraq, Shia versus Sunni. And that's where we're headed unless the Democratic Party stops this identity politics and this tribal hatred. And that's what they're trying to stir up in lieu of an agenda or a message that 51% of people of any background would embrace and vote for.
Right. One last question. We have about 3 minutes. Now, you were originally a professor of the classics of the Greco-Roman era world. There was certainly turmoil back then with those leaders. What leader in classical antiquity do you think President Trump most closely resembles, or maybe not?
Well, in part, there's in literature, there's Ajax and Homer, there's Achilles and Caesar, Alexander, not because they usurp power, but there's this strain in classical literature and history of an outsider who comes in and says that I'm going to represent the lower classes or the middle classes. This constitutional order doesn't work the way it should. They don't have solutions for these problems, and they're going to hate me in the process, maybe. And maybe my own supporters will tire of me and my methods, but I will get results. And you can see that classical tradition in the Western, Shane, High Noon, Magnificent Seven, or American generals, Patton or LeMay, where when we're in extremists, we're in real tough times, we call in these people and we say, the cattle barons are killing the sodbusters, or we don't have a remedy to attack Japan, or we don't know how to get to the Rhine River, or General Sherman, we don't know how to get into the South. And then these guys come in and they sound pretty tough. They use profanity sometimes, and they make us uncomfortable, but they get results. And then they're sort of tragic because the more results they get, the better things are. The more we have to say, wow, I brought in Shane. He might be a gunslinger in his past. Or, wow, the Magnificent Seven, I don't like their methods. And then they ride off into the sunset in the proverbial Western. I think that's going to happen to Trump. I think he's solving a lot of economic and political issues, even though he's incurring a level of hatred that we haven't seen. And I think he's going to be quite successful in solving problems, but I'm not sure that he's ever going to get commensurate credit for it.
Right. Credit, or the swamp will continue to swallow itself if we replace him with someone who's part of the swamp, the establishment.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see the never Trumpers, and the reaction to the case for Trump, the book I wrote, is most vehement. The left hates it and, says I'm a racist, sexist, but the never Trump people compared me to a Nazi apologist that was writing favorable things about Trump-Hitler. So they're the most angry that Trump has changed the Republican Party. The Bill Kristols of the world,
Yeah.
the Bulwark, and those people.
Well, what do they say? All pub is good pub. So, and you're right. And
Yeah.
you have a great book, The Case for Trump. And thanks for taking the time to call into my show today, Victor. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Good luck with that show, or that book and his show. He's going to be bearing, like I said, appeared today on the Live with Renk, tonight on Tucker Carlson. He believes he's going to be on. Again, that was Victor Davis Hanson. He's currently a senior fellow at Stanford University's Hoover Institution. And he wrote the book, The Case for Trump. It came out March 5th. It's very interesting. And I think many of you will benefit a lot from it, especially if you're wishy-washy on it and you want to know if you made the right decision or not. Heath said you have. He'll explain it to you in his book. And those of you who maybe don't like Trump may want to get it just to find out the thought behind people who think he's doing a great job.